Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Katie, the Introverted Reader, and today is your weekly episode of Trope Talk, which is basically a weekly segment on my channel where I pick out a trope out of this Jack Skellington mug and we just sit and talk about it and discuss it. Most of the ones in here are ones that I'm not a big fan of. I will leave last week's episode down below. It was a very interesting discussion. I think what was it on? Something like jealousy and toxic in relationships and books. So let's see what Jack has buzzing around in his skull this week. We've got one. Right. Thank you, Jack. See him next week. Oh, I have my water here with me because my throat gets horrendously dry when I'm filming videos. So if you have a drink yourself, get yourself one. So today's trope is, forced marriage. Forced marriage. Oh, geez. I haven't read a lot of books that would have this trope in it. A lot of like high fantasy books that I've read over the years have the whole, princess living in a country or whatever, and her family wants her to get married, and push the traditional heteronormative ideals on their child and make them like marry and whatever. What one was it? Oh yes, one good example of that is The Wrath in the Dawn by Renee Ahdieh, and I love that duology. Like Wrath in the Dawn and Rose in the Dagger are some of my as my favorite duology. But that has that trope in it because obviously it's a retelling of 1001 Nights, where basically girls are chosen from different areas and they're basically just brought in and they get them all dressed up and they're forced to marry the evil king. But like the story of that is that the evil king kills his bride on their wedding night, and the whole story of that is that our main character is basically going to go in and kill him instead. So she kind of like volunteers herself. Another one that I remember seeing this trope, I haven't read it, but what is it? I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically about this girl and she is brought in to marry the prince of this kingdom, but she ends up falling in love with his sister instead. Is it like sort of like Ink and Fire or something? Let me know what the name of that book is, because I really, really do want to read that because it sounds amazing. I love the idea of that, like that whole twist, instead of her falling in love with another dude, she's like, no, I'm gonna fall in love with your sister instead. We love a sapphic romance, we really do. I'm trying to think. Well, all in all, it's definitely a classic fantasy trope because, like, especially if I'm reading a fantasy about like where it's set in like a kingdom and, the king is just like, we need to keep the line pure and all that jazz. And I'm actually rewatching Merlin at the moment, the BBC's Merlin that was on years ago, and that sort of like forced marriage trope is in there quite a lot. Like there's several episodes in the latter seasons where Uther's trying to force Arthur into marriage, and a lot of time it's kind of overdone. I mean, it's definitely not okay, like especially those ones where maybe the person that the 16-year-old is going off to marry, and 9 times out of 10 it's a girl. Well, actually not even 9 times out of 10, all the time it's a girl, and she's being set off to like marry a man who's like twice her age or something, or who is abusive and stuff like that, and none of that is okay. That's definitely something that we need to like get rid of. I'm trying to think of ones where it kind of ends happily. Is A Curse So Dark and Lonely got the forced marriage trope in it? I think so. I mean, the characters in that, they don't get married. She's not, they don't have to get married. She just has to fall in love with him. So I don't know if that one counts. But I'm sure there are other explanations of the forced marriage in there. But like I was talking about that book where the main character ends up falling in love with the prince's sister instead. I really, really want to get my hands on that one now. I can't remember the name of it, but I definitely want to get my hands on that one because it definitely sounds like something that takes the forced marriage trope and just like twists it around and you know, turns it completely on its head. And I really, really love that whenever authors turn around tropes like that. All in all, forced marriage trope, it's definitely not something that we stand in this house. It's definitely not something that we want. It's definitely not something that we like. But all in all, I'm kind of done. I'm kind of over it. Like, especially, like, I read a lot of fantasy, if you can't see behind me here. And a lot of times that trope is in there, and a lot of times it is definitely the parents forcing it on the children. And it's just, oh, like, he'll protect you, he'll keep you, and it's just like, it's like, I'm kind of done with it, because nearly every single Disney movie over the years has done this. Like, Aladdin is definitely a prime example, because you know, so like the law says you must be married to a prince, and then, you know, that whole like Jasmine not wanting to do that and her wanting to just like kind of live life on her own for a little while. And like you think back on these movies, you know, like you're like, and I remember watching that as like a young child and thinking, oh, she's so grown up, she's 16. And then like now, years later, as 28 going on 29, I'm like, she's a baby, she's practically a child. Like, what was I doing at 16? I was mucking around when I was 16. I was a proper mess. And like I would never ever imagine either one of my parents coming up to me at age 16 and being like, here, you're gonna have to go off and get married to someone. Because it's just like, not every woman wants marriage, you know. And even if she does want marriage, she's not gonna want it at 16, is she? Which is, it's just, I mean, that's a whole other issue. But again, not something that we like, not something that we stan, and definitely something that I think a lot of fantasy authors, especially if you're writing ones that have like a royal family in there, like a royal family aspect, you need to like stop with that, because it's just we're done, okay? Anyway, I think that's really all I have to say on that subject. Let me know what that book was that I referenced a while ago about the love triangle between the prince and the prince's sister, because it definitely sounds like a book I want to get my hands on. And leave more suggestions of books that have the trope in it but maybe turn it around, or maybe actually do it right, if that makes any sense. Like, just leave suggestions down below, and also leave suggestions down below for any more tropes you want me to talk about in next week's episode, because Jack doesn't have very many bits of paper left, and I would like to have a little more for the upcoming weeks. I'm back to work on Friday. I'm nervous, but I'm also excited. But anyway, that will do that for this video today. My Twitter and my Instagram are down below as always. Subscribe if you're new, and ring the bell so that you know whenever I post a new video. I am feeling so good right now. Like, I'm definitely on the mend, so thank you all for asking about me. So anyway, I'll see you next Tuesday for Trope Talk. Stay safe, wear your mask, wash your hands, and yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.